Hi, Charles. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. It's a real honor and a privilege. You are the executive director at Abu-Ghazaleh Intellectual Property, AGIP. Since your launch, AGIP has consistently been at the forefront of efforts to improve the infrastructure of IP in the Arab world. What are the challenges and opportunities the current situation presents to these efforts in particular?
Thank you, and thank you for contacting us for this project. Let me, if you allow me to speak a couple of minutes about how we started, because as you mentioned, and this will help us a lot to answer the question about challenges and opportunities. Abu-Ghazaleh Intellectual Property started in 1972 by our founder and chairman until now, His Excellency Dr. Talal Abu-Ghazaleh. And we started in a few countries first, Kuwait, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and we started to expand until we are now in 29 different countries. We are part of a bigger group called the Talal Abu-Ghazaleh Global, which we have other sister firms who offer other and more professional services. So going back to this, why I mentioned this, because in 1972 until let's say the early 2000, 2001 and so on, I was called by our chairman, and he told me that although we are there since 30 years almost, but now I want you to head the regional office, which is the office, you can say, that oversee the operation in general in all our offices, to take us to the digital age. And he used to have a nice sentence. He used to say digitalization is the future language of IP, or intellectual property, which was strange back then because IP people, in fact, most of the legal people like to deal still maybe by email and so on, but not more, let's say. So since I started there and I came from an IT background, I'm a computer science graduate. I have a bachelor degree in computer science. So I was a little bit afraid, but I understood what our chairman wanted from me. So I started with, of course, a team of wonderful people working here, and we started to try to develop everything that can be digitalized. So any process that could be done by a computer, or we can have a software for that, we used to do that. And we have our own internal software house, e-solution department, we call it. And we develop all our main software, let's say here. So now I reach your question. This is why I told at the beginning, because you said the challenges and opportunities. So when this happened, the situation around the world, which changed our life and our business, as everybody knows, we were almost ready because most of our system were ready to, so we can start working directly from home. The different countries where we had a lot of closures, as you know, social distancing was important. So in some countries, Jordan is an example, we had a fully curfew between some hours and some days. You cannot go out, so you have to work from home. It was easy to move, to have this move. Most of our work connecting with our clients around the world, we used our own system, and of course with some additional software like the one we're using now for the video conferencing, and we were able to continue work, and it was a very successful operation. And so the challenges were much less for us, with very few employees maybe whose work required to be at the trademark office or the patent office and so on. But the majority, or more than 90% of our work wasn't interrupted, and we were able to continue serving all our clients and do the needed on time.
So Dr. Abu-Ghazaleh, about 10 years ago, realized that they're moving into the digital age, and you were way ahead of the curve, it seems like, than most law firms around the world, and now currently one of the top, let's say, 10 law firms in the world. So what would you say that you're still technologically way more advanced than other firms, or have other firms maybe caught up around the world?
Well, in fact, many of the other firms now have more systems using, they are using, I mean, more systems, and they have a lot of work. But for us, the main maybe system which we were ahead of the rest of the IP firms around the world, where we were able, as you mentioned, more than 10 years ago, to have access to all our clients to track their work, send instructions online, check their billing, and so on. They used to do that through a secure connection to our main website and do whatever they want there and check. You know, sometimes in the US, where you are, for example, there is a big difference in timing with some of our offices. Like in Jordan, from the East Coast, 7 hours, the West Coast, even 10 hours, and so on. So they didn't even have to send an email. They could just go online, check, for example, this patent was filed, when it was filed, is there any missing documents, whatever needed, they used to see that online and they can send us online instruction. So our next step now, we are thinking now to go to the new technologies. Maybe this is why you asked me this question. Thank you for that. We are starting thinking how to add more of the, everybody now talking about around the world, the artificial intelligence. So we are trying to make our people concentrate more on innovation and new ideas, business development, and so on. And the legal, of course, the legal people, you still have the legal cases and so on, the litigation related to the intellectual property. But for any process that could be done automated, not only automated even, as we said, with artificial intelligence technologies, for example, someone asking for a proposal with just requirements and charges. Why you need someone to reply? You should have a system now that automatically reply maybe to the client as it is a person. And it should be customized, of course, that even answer some questions. So we are thinking to start implementing some of these systems, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. It's also what I found is that many times the startups, and when they have the initial founder, from what I understand, Dr. Abu-Ghazaleh is now 82, very active in the company and very innovative mind. From what I've seen is sometimes as companies get larger, it's a little bit more difficult to implement change internally. Do you feel like you guys are ready for that and able to implement change even with your size?
You are absolutely right, this, to be honest. And it was difficult in some countries more than others. But in general, because we started maybe early, as you mentioned before, so I think now people are used here to change. And they know that without a change, they cannot even advance in their careers. So some of our career paths, in fact, connected to some courses, courses related to intellectual property and to IT. We need to be sure that all our employees are ready to deal with the internet, with the different software and so on. So this is important for us now for new hiring for sure since many years, or since maybe the last 6-7 years. But even the older people, like me, I'm starting to get old, but still all of the people there now are ready and they know how to use the computer. We stopped using secretaries in that field since long time now. No director, even in any of our countries, is allowed to have a secretary. Secretary is your computer. The secretary, in other words, we have administrative assistant for to do some things, not only to do the usual secretarial work, organize your meetings and so on. You can do that easily when you are IT literate and ready to do that. So we had these rules, which helped us, to be honest, with the training, of course, needed, helped us to make all our people ready for that. But at the beginning, I can assure you, yes, for sure, it was hard. And my advice to all the firms who want to take the step to start now, don't keep, let's say, waiting. So this is important.
Right. So being in 29 different countries, this is very difficult with regards to different regulations in different states of how the security and other regulations that may come with running a law firm.
In each country, of course, we follow the law in that country. For example, some litigation cases we cannot do even because in some countries the litigation or any case related to that should go to the court should be through a local lawyer. So we do that. Mainly we will do the contact with the client, but who take the case to the court and so on will be a local lawyer. For example, all our clients know that we use the name of Suleiman in Saudi Arabia. So it's Abu-Ghazaleh, but there is a lawyer there, local lawyer who work with us and of course do the needed. But we try when we deal like this to make sure that all the people we select is working per our rules. We have what we call the golden rules. You should always reply within 24 hours, be proactive and so on. So we teach them all about these our rules in general. But the good thing, and until now, at the same time, a bad thing for the profession in general, which is mainly our main office is still concentrated in the Arab countries, although now we are global, but the majority is still in the Arab countries, which everybody knows is still a consumer market. So 80% of the work is still in the trademark field. So this prosecution work, filing, and so on doesn't need even external. So our registration in these countries allow us to do everything related to prosecution directly even. So we can control the quality more in this way.
From what I understand, there has been a little bit of a shift in the Arab world in Jordan, Egypt, that they may be coming out with more innovation. What sort of innovation? Can you explain to us what sort of innovation may be coming out?
Thank you for this question. It's very important because in the region, patents, let's say, as I told you, until now, trademark is number one, but patent work coming from the region itself. We used to have patent work, but mainly from the US or Europe or the Far East, Japan, and so on. But now, recently, in the last, let's say, few years, more people are more aware of the importance to innovate more and to protect their innovation. So they go to patenting and so on. The majority, and you can say in the fields, you know, mainly pharmaceutical and some high-tech, of course, fields are maybe the main two, let's say, fields that we have patenting in them. And people more interested in this, and they want to know more information, how to do it, and so on.
Some of your specialties include internet policy, domain names, IDNs, ICT. Can you share how is this global situation impacting these areas in particular?
I think I can say if you want to compare it to the intellectual property, the impact is less, I expect, because from its type, when you talk about internet policy or domain names, so these were already there, and you should do that online. For example, you want to search for a domain name to register it. You used to go to the internet directly and check. So I think the impact is on the use or how to reach them or to continue the service. It's there and it's much easier. The issue maybe, if your question relates to how it affected the practice itself, I expect, like in many of the fields, it depends on the field, I meant to say. So if you're in the, let's say, tourism industry, everybody knows that this was hit a lot. So I'm sure they will have less protection even for trademarks to find their more, let's say, domain names in the different countries needed for the country code domain names. And so this is maybe the effect may be related to the sector, I think, more than the practice itself.
AGIP has received the Managing Intellectual Property Award for being the top IP firm in the Middle East for 10 years. How is the current COVID-19 situation impacting some international collaboration?
Well, I think we can say that we are affected like everyone else. But the good thing, when we started the discussion, that the effect on us was much less. So we were able to continue dealing with everyone. So we still expect to have the award again next year, hopefully, and the year before. And if even it's more than 10 years, to be honest, more than 10 times, I mean. So I think we recently have another award from Paris. They had something called related to IP and innovation. So we were happy to say that we were selected for the Middle East and Africa, for example. This was just before, by the way, the COVID-19 in January this year. And this was for the second year. They started recently, and they were looking at firms who offer IP and innovation, as we understood. So we participated with them, and we got the award for the Middle East and Africa. I think this drives us to make sure that we shouldn't be, let's say, allow this situation or what's going on to make us have less service or less quality. So, on the contrary, this will make us maybe to put more time on this and even become better and develop more our services.
So many people around the world may not understand the market in Jordan, you know, what's going on over there. What would you say to, you know, US companies or innovation? Why should they come to Jordan to do business, maybe manufacture? What would you, if you had to pitch them, what would you say if you had 30 seconds?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, if you allow me to make it a little bit more than just Jordan, because I know people when they come, especially from the US, as you said, and Europe, when they want to come to Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Bahrain, which is the Gulf states here. So we have offices, as you know, in all of these countries. So I think that you look at the market advantage. It's a big economies in some of them. Jordan, not that big, in fact. It's a small, good country, but very booming in the IT sector, for example. So this is important for the high-tech people. The Gulf state, Emirates, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and so on. This is a big market for almost many things, as you know. So most of our work, I can tell it even in transparency, that is mainly to the Gulf states more than Jordan and Egypt and so on. Although we have offices in all these countries, we know that the majority of the international people still interested until now in the Gulf states. Maybe because of the many, as you said, so as not to spend a lot of time, because they are big economies and there is a big business there.